Okay, we're live. Um, Thank you for joining. This is um, General General Richard Ojeda.
No, Major
Oh,
retired Richard
sorry,
Ojeda.
sorry. Major. He's the nominee for North Carolina's ninth congressional district. He's running against the National Republican House Chair Committee member Richard Hudson, who's in charge of making sure the Republicans don't lose. He has a He's not going to succeed, and I predict he's not succeed in his own race. Um, would you mind giving a little bit of a background of who you are, why you're running, and so forth?
Okay, so my name is Major retired Richard Ojeda. I spent 24 years in the United States Army. When I retired from the military, my wife and I decided to move back home where I grew up to be with our aging parents, and that was West Virginia. And while I was there, I ran a nonprofit sending kids to school with new shoes on their feet. Then I started teaching at the high school level. I taught JROTC, and then I become a legislator. I won a state senate race, and got a lot of things done in a super minority. So my wife and I finally decided that we were ready to leave West Virginia, and we brought my entire family with us. And we moved to North Carolina, found a beautiful piece of land. We built two houses on it, and I had no desire to get back into politics, but when I started seeing what was going on with the Veterans Administration and the cuts that Doge was doing, and
Yeah,
then I started looking at my representation. And my representation, which is Richard Hudson, and you are correct, he's the chair of the NRCC. He doesn't put boots on the ground in this district. He doesn't return phone calls. He refuses to do town halls. Uh, and I just decided that, if he's not going to represent us, then somebody needs to represent us. He stays in Washington, D.C., raising money to keep Republicans in power, and that's all he cares about. So, you know what? He can stay in Washington, D.C., where he lives, by the way, in
yeah.
a house, and I'll do the representation of the people of the Ninth District.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. I think that also, for people that might not completely know who Richard Hudson is, I'm sure you read a headline last year during the ACA continuing debate where you had a Republican congressman saying, "Don't go out to your community, don't do town halls." That's this guy.
That was him.
That's who Richard's running against. That's the guy we're trying to kick out of Congress.
Yep.
Um, that was a very famous quote, and I think that says a lot about how he represents or doesn't represent his constituents. The fact that he's telling everyone else, "Don't do town halls, don't talk to your community members." Um, my understanding is, my friend, who I believe you served with, Armando, um, Gomes, he was telling me that, you went part of the, Green to Gold program. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yes.
And so obviously, like, you know a lot about what leadership entails. Would you I wanna get started with, like, kind of a silly question, I guess. If you are elected, which I think you will be, would you support the current leadership? Do you think the current leadership of our party is meeting the moment?
As of right now, I would really like to make sure that there are some promises that are made. And
Yes.
what I mean by that is before I throw my vote towards anybody, I need to know that you're going to get back in here and you're going to start fighting. We're going to start passing legislation that's going to elevate people. There's a lot of things that I want to see done. I want to end Citizens United. I want to bring back the fairness doctrine. I want to protect rural hospitals. I want to, go after the housing crisis, the unaffordability that we have going on. I want to make sure that the people that we put in power are focused on doing that for the American people. And that's what that's going to be about.
Do you think that the current leadership at this moment is doing what you just said?
Uh, well, I mean, right now they're not doing much because once again they're in the super minority and there's
Yeah.
really not much. But once we take back power, the moment that we take back power, then we should absolutely have the ability to push and pass whatever it is that we want. And that's why it's important. I want to kill right to work legislation. And if they're not willing to kill right to work legislation, these are the questions I want to ask. And if their answer is no, we're not going to do that, then no, I'm not going to throw my vote towards you.
That makes total sense. I think that one thing that I think voters have noticed, and usually to stay home because they notice it, is they don't think they think Republicans are failing America, which they are. They also think Democrats are not meeting the moment and they're not being bold enough. And I think that what you just said is really getting at that idea is like, we need people that are bold. If we're going to be in power, we have to show that not only are we going to bring back the democracy we once had, but we're going to make it better, actually work for the American people and for the people of North Carolina's 9th congressional district. And
We
I
have
think that it's people saw the 2024 election. This has been talked about. When people said we're defending democracy, people saw it as we're defending the status quo, which has its own issues. But like that's how people saw it, and people did not like the status quo because people having to choose month to month whether or not they could pay for the medication or for their grocery bill, and that is not a place where most people want to live. And
exactly. That's not a place where the richest country on earth should have its citizens living like. We can do better.
exactly, as we enter our 250th year, like I am a proud American, but I also have to say, not because I think what we're doing right now or what we've done in the past is great, but because the ideals that our founders set forth 250 years ago and the goal of what America could be and what it can be, that is what I'm patriotic about, not necessarily the current state of affairs and the current leadership of our country. And I think that I was wondering what you thought, obviously, because you served this country, and I was wondering what you thought about what the idea of patriotism is in this very important anniversary and so forth.
Today, to me, patriotism is standing up against what we see going on. Patriotism is saying that this is right. Patriotism is willing to say, we're not the good guys here. Patriotism is willing to say that the good guys don't bomb schools and kill 163 little girls. Good guys don't bomb schools. Good guys don't bomb facilities that provide clean drinking water for people in the Middle East. That's the way it's supposed to be. Or that, I mean, we need to have people standing against that. And that's what I want to see.
I fully agree with you on that. I think that I wanted to talk to you about rural America and like farmers because
Absolutely.
I had a candidate the other day that we were talking about the fact that a farm bill has not passed since 2018. And obviously North Carolina 9th has a lot of farmers, as does the whole state of North Carolina, as does whole United States of America. What would be your strategy, assuming that Republicans can't pass a farm bill this term, because likely they won't be able to. They can't pass their own reconciliation bill at this point. What is your plan, and what do you want to see in a farm bill, and what do you want to see out of a farm bill that's currently in terms of when you get elected in November and 7 January?
Well, before I get in here and start throwing word salad, we are trying to set up an opportunity for us to sit down with the farmers. So
Yes.
instead of me throwing stuff at you right now, at the end of the day, I want to meet face to face with farmers because I want to know exactly what it is that they are, what they're struggling with. And we can already tell. I mean, if you look at what's going on with the soybeans and things like that. And now, everybody's getting their soybeans from someplace else. That's crucial. A lot of these farms out here are holding on by a thread. And we have to do everything in our power to keep them. When you see a farmer, and oh, by the way, 90% of farmers that lose their farms also lose their homes because their homes are on those farms. And right
Yes.
now, we've got people in Washington, D.C., like Peter Thiel, who's in, I guess, Argentina now, but J.D. Vance and them, who swoop in and buy farms out from under these
Yes.
farmers. And we have to stop that, number one.
I would fully agree with you. And on that idea of buying farms, that's like when people talk about the data centers that are being forced upon us, and specifically in the rural communities, and they talk about how they're using open land to buy them. The thing is, that is not open land. That is oftentimes used farmland of that these, and that's their, because like this is their value. Like this is what they've worked on for years because they might not have had the money to go to college. They didn't have that luxury. So they were like, we're building this farm, we're expanding acreage, we're doing all these things, and that is what what brings them income. And so, and oftentimes, just like any other element of that we've seen with agribusiness or any other tech purchase, they buy for cents on the dollar and they destroy the communities as we do it. So, what is your position on what we need to do with data centers?
I am against data centers. At the end of the day, and here's the thing. If you want a data center, okay, then the data center should be willing to pay for everything that it takes to
Yes,
establish a data center. But now that's like the financial side of it. But there's also a part that deals with water because
yes,
data centers absolutely evaporate millions upon millions of gallons of water just to keep them cooled on a single day. So, once again, I live in North Carolina. Gets pretty hot down here. We're experiencing 90-degree heat.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you right now, things like droughts happen. And if you have a drought, if you're normally find time when you have droughts and then they put a data center, you better believe them droughts are going to become a part of the norm. And that's
Yeah.
not what people want. People don't want to have to go buy bottled water to bathe their children. But make no mistake about it, that's the path that we are on with these data centers. It causes also like Duke Energy here in North Carolina and like what is it, Appalachian Power in West Virginia. It's going to cause them to have to expand in order to be able to handle all the business that's going to come from, or all the power that's going to come from the data centers. Look, when they make that expansion, you know what they do with that. You know what they do with the money that costs to that, don't you? They put it on the backs of the users. They have agreements with state legislatures that say things like we're allowed to have so much profit per year, and if we don't reach that profit, we can automatically stick it onto the backs of the citizens and make them actually have to pay so that we can get that profit. So there's nobody out here fighting to protect the backs of the average Americans with these data centers, and that's in West Virginia. The Speaker of the House in West Virginia, his last name is Crenshaw. He just took a job with data centers. Do you
Wow.
think he's really going to be fighting for the people of West Virginia, or is he going to be fighting for the data centers as the Speaker of the House in the West Virginia State House? Because you should know that answer already.
Yeah, that's deeply disturbing. I think that what we've seen with the PACs that have invaded our primaries, mainly the two biggest combined PACs right now in our primaries are AI and crypto. Those are like the two, and then APAC is third, is my understanding of the money. Still a lot of money that APAC spending also, but the crypto and AI are the ones deeply impacting our daily lives every day through invading our economic systems and invading our communities through these data centers and hurting our education, because they're also putting AI into almost like all the education curriculums, which is not going to lead to better learning for our kids. I wanted to discuss your race specifically. Like, obviously, it's not a, I wouldn't even call it a purple district in some ways, because you're making it a purple district, but at the data level, it's a red leaning district because of the way they gerrymandered it.
It's gerrymandered. Yeah, it's very gerrymandered. But you got to also understand that this is a district where a couple counties are fairly new due to the gerrymandering. And those people have no clue what Richard Hudson looks like, what he sounds like. And I'm going to tell you, I've traveled this district more than I've traveled this district more in the last 14 months than Richard Hudson has in his entire lifetime. That's an
That's
absolute
crazy.
fact. And I'm going to tell you that people they don't receive return phone calls. He doesn't show up. All he does is forward whatever Donald Trump has to say. Calls himself the veterans representative when he sat quiet while Elon Musk fired over 7,000 VA jobs, and then he supported the big beautiful bill
That's
that
crazy.
targets 86,000 VA jobs. So this is a guy that's out of touch with his district, and he doesn't show up. And he's the guy once again that you said in the beginning. He's one that said no more town halls. He doesn't want to meet with the people, but I'm going to. We're getting ready to start doing town halls, and I'm going to invite Republicans, independent, unaffiliated, everybody, because everybody, if I win this race and they live in my district, become my constituents. And just
Yes.
because they're a different party doesn't mean that they don't have the right to be heard. And that's what I want to do. I want to give these people an ear and know that I'm listening.
This is also someone who's endorsed Donald Trump, who has referred to veterans as suckers and losers, and said about John McCain that he likes people that weren't captured. So, like, this is he. The thing is, you can tell how someone feels about any different group based on who they support and the comments of those people also. And he's never had any issue with what Trump has said or any other Republican has said about veterans.
He calls himself the veterans representative, or I'm Fort Bragg's congressman. Let me tell you something. You know what? This guy, he absolutely, he's never picked up a rifle and manned a post. He only acts that way because Fort Bragg is in his district. But you know what? I am Fort Bragg. I spent 15 of my 24 years at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I'm gonna tell, and I know what it's like to have to kiss your children in the middle of the night to sneak out like a thief in the night because you're leaving for a year combat long deployment. I've done that multiple times. Richard Hudson doesn't know what life is like for these people. He can beat his chest and call himself the veterans representative all he wants. He's never walked a single foot in the shoes of a soldier, sailor, airman, and Marine, and I have.
Exactly. I think there's a lot of people in Congress that claim that they're like representing veterans, and then they've never been one, which is not necessarily an issue, but they also don't care to learn and listen to the veterans that have sacrificed their lives and their families' livelihoods.
If
And
you're sitting silent, and you claim to support veterans, but you don't have nothing to say to Donald Trump when we
exactly.
have daggone our military bases in the Middle East getting bombed because we have decided to go into a war that we should not be in. I mean, I look for courage in leaders. That's what I look for. And when I don't see courage in leaders, it really bothers me because you got no business calling yourself a leader if you don't have the courage to stand up against this tyranny that we are all living in right now.
I agree. I think that also one thing that's going to help you in your race is that you guys have an amazing North Carolina Democratic Party chair in Anderson Clayton. She is she's a firecracker, and I'm proud to call her a fellow member of Gen Z. She's amazing. Like there's so many great state party chairs across the country, but I would say she's by far the best.
Let me tell you something. I love it. I love it when people try to snipe at her because
Oh,
she is so quick.
yeah.
Every time I see her, I say, that's going to be that's the future governor of North Carolina. And now I'm telling you right now, everybody that I know just absolutely adores her because I'm telling you right now, she is quick and she's an amazing leader.
She really is. Like anytime I see her on social media, like her comments or her interviews or whatever, she's an amazing communicator. But not only is she an amazing communicator, she's amazing to do work on the ground to get the restoration. She's gotten to the point where we went from obviously Roy Cooper, an amazing governor, and he's gonna be an amazing senator, to now having a Democrats being elected in every statewide position besides one, and of course that's where state Republicans changed it so a lot of the power that used to be held by the governor and the attorney general is by the one position that is held by a Republican because they didn't want the Democrat to control it. But I think that she has led the state to the point where it was a red to purple state to now being moving to a blue state in the coming
She's
years.
amazing. Let me tell you something. There's 100 counties in North Carolina. And I'm going to tell you right now, I bet you that she hits every single one of them every month.
Easily.
She goes nonstop and she's just pure fire. And everybody absolutely just loves her. So yeah, I support her wholeheartedly. I'm really excited. We're getting ready to do one of our first town halls. She's going to be there with us, and it's just great having support from somebody like her.
No, she's amazing. I think that I do hope that one day, maybe someday soon, even though I love her in North Carolina, I hope maybe one day she'll be the Democratic Party chair nationwide, and I think that would be an amazing thing for the party. Um,
She's unlike anyone I've ever met, and she's
yes,
amazing.
I think when people talk about needing to one contest every race and go everywhere, she is the embodiment of that message. And I think that every state party chair, every national party leader, any person that's looking at politics needs to look at her for an example of what to do and throw their playbook somewhere out. Because clearly, North Carolina is a model for the rest of the country in terms of Democratic Party infrastructure,
Yeah.
in a way that we don't see in every other state.
And I
Um,
think it's also important to understand that right now, one of the things that we're finding out is that the unaffiliated voter
yes,
is absolutely fired up. They're tired of this garbage. And I really believe that the majority of the unaffiliated voters are Democrats. I'm going to tell you this. Guilford County, which basically is Greensboro, goodness gracious, he's the state. Phil Berger. Phil Berger has ran North Carolina like a daggone with a fist for a long time, does
he
what he
just
wants when he
lost.
wants. He lost on election night by 2 votes. And I'm going to tell you, it was the unaffiliated that chose to vote on the Republican ticket and vote against him to get him beat. And he lost by 2 votes. And then, of course, he screamed, recount, recount. And, of course, it ended up him losing by like 23 votes. I'm going
Who
to
was
tell
the
you,
person that beat him?
Sam Page. His name's Sam Page. But I'm going to tell you right now, Steve Luking is phenomenal, and he's running on the Democratic ticket for that seat. Now, I'm going to tell you this, and I say this to everybody out there because what people don't understand, when I was a senator in West Virginia, I was in the 7th senatorial district, okay? And there's 2 people from each senatorial district. I had a guy by the name of Dr. Ron Stallings, was a senior senator. I was a junior senator. I'm going to tell you something. You would be amazed how often healthcare comes up for a conversation in your state house, in every single state house. And I'm going to tell you right now, I watched Doc Stallings almost come to throwing fists to trying to make sure that people that are growing old have dignity in their care. And he was just such a great fighter. And of course, he lost to a 22-year-old that drives around with a truck that has F. Joe Biden flags on the back of it. But that's the thing. Steve Luking is also a doctor, a medical doctor. And you know what? If you want to send people to the state house that will fight for you, send people like Steve Luking, who is a medical doctor. We're not talking politics. We're talking somebody who understands about the healthcare and he knows the healthcare system. That's the people that you want at that state house. And Steve Luking is amazing. And I really do hope that he's successful.
I think that like one thing I often talk about on my Substack is the need to not only build obviously congressional majorities and Senate majorities, all these things nationwide, but also even more importantly, because this is what decides gerrymandering, what decides all this other stuff, is state legislature majorities. And I think that what you're talking about is like you need to. I think people focus less on them because it's less notable and people don't think that it matters as much for whatever reason. But they're the ones that decide, 1, who's on the courts, 2, what the maps look like to decide your congressional people. Because obviously North Carolina, they just gerrymandered, and obviously we'll see if that map is made worse or made better in the next census, depending on what the state legislature looks like next time.
But technically, redrawing the district lines takes place about once every 10 years, but not down here.
No,
It's taken place multiple times. It's like they were literally, if you zoom in on a map, it's like they draw around people's houses.
Yeah.
Oh, that guy's a Democrat, cut him out. I mean, that's the way they do it. And that's why it's great that Phil Berger is on his way out, because he's one of the ones that have pushed this gerrymandering.
The thing is, I think that I was hoping maybe after we saw what happened in Texas, and then we saw California fight back.
Yep.
That maybe some California Republicans that are likely to lose because of the map change might start being like, oh, maybe we'll change our position because it's now affecting us, and vote to like sign a discharge petition and force a vote on banning gerrymandering. Yet they dug in further. Besides one Republican congressman who's now an independent, Kevin Kiley, but you now have a situation where obviously North Carolina did it, Florida's did it, Louisiana's done it, Alabama's done it, and I think another state is thinking, Missouri's doing it. And Democrats tried to do it in Virginia due to some structural errors in the forming, and then some other shenanigans by the court. It didn't. It's not going to be in place for this election.
It shouldn't happen. It should not happen, period. We need fair maps across the board. But it's kind of messed up that, Virginia and California went to the people and they took a vote. Okay?
Yes.
The red states aren't doing that. And it seems like right now the red states are getting away with it while the blue states are being, told you can't do this. Because the truth is if the red wants to continue doing this gerrymandering and completely cutting people of color out of any, you show me a community of color in a red state and I'm going to show you a community that has been disenfranchised, because they go in and they cut it up into fourths and then they spread it out to larger groups where it's the majority of white people. That's what this is. That's what this is all about. That's what they've been trying to do. And it's not right, because the truth is if New York did it, New York could add another 27, I believe it is. Illinois could add another 17. But once again, the Democrats play nice. Sometimes don't play so nice.
Well, the thing is that like also you mentioned how like Democrats took it to the voters. Well, Republicans literally changed the maps while people were voting. That's even a step further into the
look at Texas. I mean, 200,000 more Democrats voted than Republicans.
Yes.
200,000. I mean, look, let me tell you something. If that doesn't tell you that their change is coming, people are tired. People can't afford things. I went to the grocery store yesterday and I went to Food Line, and Food Line has those baskets where the top basket's about this big, about maybe a foot and a half, and then the bottom basket's a little bigger. I put a watermelon in the bottom, and in the top, I had 4 jugs of juice, different types of juice. I had some Pop Tarts, I had some cat food, and a couple other items. It was $77. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself,
Oh gosh.
people can't afford this. That's what's going on right now. We've got our president's too. He's right now, all he cares about is a UFC fight. You know, that's all he care about. We got Americans that are struggling in this country. And oh, by the way, my opponent, he's not talking about affordability. He's not talking about the high price of gas. They're acting like it's not a thing, like it doesn't exist. That's what's wrong. Everybody should be angry at this, and it doesn't matter who's in charge. You know, anybody that goes out there and commits us to a daggone war without first getting permission, and I'm going to tell you another thing too. That's another reason why it's important for me to make it to Congress. Because when I see people beat the drums of war, I will call them out on that
Yes.
floor.
The thing is, I feel like so many people, Trump included, that are like, we need to do war, like this war is important, whatever it is. They've never served.
No, they never served. And once again, this is all about trying to make sure that everybody's looking over here so they can't look over here. And over here is the Epstein files. And over here is billionaires that are daggone milking the system and getting away
Yes.
with it. That's what's wrong.
Has your opponent agreed to the debate?
Nope. I doubt very seriously. He's never done one. He doesn't show up. He doesn't come down here. You know, that's who he is. He thinks that he's Donald Trump's, right-hand man. People around here are tired. They're waking up, and it's sad that we still have so many people that still align themselves with MAGA and these Republican so-called values. Because once again, I don't care who you are, you're struggling.
Yes.
Average American out there can't pay $4.65 for a gallon of gas. And oh, by the way, we talked about farmers in the beginning.
Yes.
That's huge. They cannot afford this diesel fuel, and it continues to go up because everything that they use to run their farms is ran by diesel.
Yes.
And oh, by the way, it's not just there, it's also the truck drivers going around because the stores have to pay that gas. It's so high for those truck drivers. And do you know where they get their money back? They put it on the items in the store that we buy. I'm looking at things that used to be $5 that are now $9.
Yeah.
And that right there is unacceptable.
Well, you mentioned farmers again. I'm assuming you would support a right to repair legislation if it came to a vote?
Or right to what?
Right to repair.
Right to repair.
It's the idea that farmers can fix their own equipment without having to go to Timbuktu and pay exorbitant amount of prices.
Yeah, look, I'll support anything that supports our farmers. I will support anything that supports our farmers because once again, we need these farmers and the things that they do are important. And this administration, not only has it hurt farmers by the price of gas, but look at all these farmers that have been talking for the past year and a half, how they're now getting up at 3:00 in the morning to milk their own cows because they have nobody showing up to work anymore. Because everybody's scared that if they show up to work, the ICE is going to show up, snatch them off the farms, and send them to some gulag in Sudan. And that's why they're struggling. Farmers are struggling right now, and it's all to do with what's going on with these jackasses in Washington.
I fully agree with you. I was wondering, what is your obviously healthcare is a huge issue, always is, but right now it's especially an issue due to the ACA cuts and various other crises that were man-made by the Trump administration in the Republican Congress. What is your plan for to fix the healthcare system to get back to what we used to be, and then make it better from what it was before Trump?
We have to we got to protect and expand Medicaid. Have to. It's crucial. Understand this. And what the powers that be right now are talking about taking $1 trillion from Medicaid. That is basically the entire budget itself. When you do that, rural hospitals will no longer be able to get that money that they're used to getting. And what that does is it causes a daggone rural hospitals to shut down.
Yes.
And when the rural hospital shut down, get ready for a ghost town because the people that need health care have to now move closer to health care. And then what's left is what's left. And then you got people that have no health care. You know, they're lucky if there's a clinic around that they can go to, or they're going to have to drive an hour and a half to 2 hours to another hospital in another part of the state. And we cannot allow that to happen. Because let me tell you something, rural hospitals rely on Medicaid because most of the people that live in these rural areas need Medicaid for their health care. When you kill that and they have nothing, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? Are we going to literally sit here and call ourselves the greatest nation on earth while we allow people to die because they can't afford health care? I'm sick and tired of watching people talk about we're the greatest nation on earth and we don't do nothing for our people.
I fully agree with you. I just this past semester I was studying abroad in Europe, in the Czech Republic, and the amount and like what I've heard from people that had to do more severe healthcare things because they had an allergic reaction or whatever it was, or me just having like cold and needing to get medication. It was so much cheaper, so much easier to deal with in Europe than when I'm in America. And the thing is, I'd still am proud to want to live in America, but I think that it's disturbing that the great, like you said, a country that talks about how we're the greatest country in the world, can't keep people alive because we are too focused on the corporations that are lining the pockets of Congress.
The greed, it's greed. It's like, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't care, you know, and I know there's always conspiracy theories and things like that. But, you know, we are the great, if we're going to be the greatest nation on earth, then we should prove that by taking care of our people. We should prove that by saying that we don't have veterans that are living under bridges because they have no homes. We should prove it by making sure that we create affordable housing for people out there. You know, everybody wants to live in a home. But you know what? There's a lot of people out there that if they wasn't for family members allowing them to live under their roof, they would be homeless right now.
Oh yeah.
You know, there are plenty of countries out there that offer things to their people that we should offer to ours. We're the richest nation on earth. We're also the most in debt, by the way. But once again, you know, we should be able to take care of our people, but we choose not to. And at the end of the day, when you're talking about things like cancers and stuff like that, just understand, and I don't care how anybody feels about this. If they could make more money on a cure, then it would have already been cured.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a very good point. I think that it's deeply disturbing that we cannot do this. I wanted to obviously, like, we talk about how, like, the often Republican answer whenever we talk about wanting to, like, provide any type of program that help people, whether it's housing, whether it's healthcare, is we don't have the money, we have debt, blah blah blah. But then they have money for a $1 billion ballroom. They have money to give out slush fund money to a bunch of insurrectionists, pedophiles, and cop beaters, and we're able to do this like helipad on the White House lawn. The UFC fight, the change of statues, the change of the reflecting pool, all these like makeovers that are unnecessary.
But that's how it's always been.
Yes.
We've always got money to drop bombs on people, but we don't have money for Meals on Wheels now. You know, they canceled child cancer research. Once again, stop beating your daggone chest.
Yeah.
If you want to beat your chest, then let's do the right things. Let's make sure. You know, look. I don't care. I say the things that I say, but I'm going to try to push things. You know, elderly people have been paying into Social Security their entire adult lives. You know, they've also paid taxes. They fought our nation wars. Maybe we have a cutoff date where we say, you know what, from this moment on, when you're this age, you don't pay taxes anymore. Every dime you get to keep. Maybe we do things like that so that people can survive. Because right now you've got elderly people that are cutting their meds in half. You've got elderly people choosing between heat and their medicine. I mean, this is the problem that we have in America. Why don't poor kids have the same opportunities as rich kids? Right now, every single American is doing math in their head while they're at the grocery store because they're scared when they get up to the checkout, they're going to get embarrassed because the prices went up again last night and now they don't have enough to cover their goods. This is the kind of stuff that's not right. Every single day, people are wondering, how can I stretch a tank of gas? Because last night it went up again. We're supposed to be the greatest nation on earth, And we've got nothing but a bunch of people in Washington, D.C. that only care about themselves and their wealth. And that's a poison pill for the United States of America. If we stay on this track, we are going to lose our democracy. And I didn't
Yeah.
spend 24 years in the military so we could become a dictatorship under the dumbest man to ever occupy the chair.
Yeah, yeah, he's like, there's been so much stupidity outside of the awful things he's done. There's just been so much stupidity, whether it be like all the AI memes of him like as Jesus, or him as like a superhero, or him last year when the No Kings protests were happening, he was dumping feces on the protesters from a giant plane, whatever it might be. It's become we've become a laughingstock in the country and abroad, and it's like the thing is, I think that like I think that obviously he like any other president has taken a pro-Israel stance, which is not an issue. But the thing is, you don't allow yourself to be corrupted by Netanyahu, who's clearly abused his power just like Trump has, and he's kept this war going just so he can stay out of jail and stay in office. Sounds familiar. And it's deeply problematic. And then but the thing is, he won't stand up to Netanyahu, but he'll fight against Greenland and Canada. It just and NATO, and it just feels like his priorities are completely off.
Donald Trump is compromised. Donald Trump is compromised. Donald Trump is in the pockets of Vladimir Putin. That's exactly where he is at. And he does everything that Putin asks him to do.
Yes.
You know, Ukraine did not want this. They didn't ask for this. And the world begged Putin, please do not invade Ukraine. But Putin thought he could take Ukraine in 3 days. He didn't know that they would fight back and end up daggone kicking some tail. And that's exactly what Ukraine's been doing. But once again, Donald Trump gets in office. Then what does Donald Trump do? He immediately cuts any support from the United States that was going to Ukraine. Because why? Because Donald Trump is in Vladimir Putin's pocket. He's also in Netanyahu's pocket. He's the useful idiot that Netanyahu has been looking for the past 30 years, and he found it in Donald Trump. And now here we are. And oh, by the way, they bombed. There's not a structure left in Gaza. But did they stop in Gaza? Nope. They went straight into daggone Lebanon. You know that over 600 schools have been bombed? Hospitals have been bombed. Children have been killed. Oh, people opened fire on food distribution points. This is what's going on. And we've got a bunch of cowards in Washington, D.C. that are too scared to say anything because they don't want their orange daddy to start talking negatively about them during their campaigns.
Well, that's what you've seen in recent weeks with after Massey's been consistently staying up to Trump consistently, but he's been doing so more since he lost his primary. Bill Cassidy, after he submitted to Trump by voting in the most incompetent HHS secretary to get his endorsement, and then never got the endorsement, and now he lost his primary in Louisiana. And because of his vote, children are dying out of needless diseases that we cured years ago. And obviously Cornyn just lost in Texas, and you're going to see more of this across the thing. And the thing is, now you're starting to see some of them. I think the media has coined them the YOLO caucus, where now they've lost, they can actually have a backbone. And the thing is, the fact that the only way you get a backbone in Congress on the Republican side of the aisle is when you lose your primary or when you decide you're going to retire, in terms of Mitch McConnell doing it. That is not. Maybe that's the reason why we need term limits.
But it's not. You're right. But once again, it's not just Republicans.
No,
I am very disappointed in our senior leadership in our military. Very disappointed. Because Trump fired, Hegseth fired General Brown, who was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He wasn't just on the Joint Chiefs of Staff, he was the chairman, and everything about him was absolutely spot on. He deserved that job. He was the best man for the job. But he was fired because of the color of his skin. And the very next day, they fired the first woman to ever be in charge over top of the Coast Guard because she was a woman. And since then, they have refused to promote women of color to general star levels. This is the stuff that's going on, and what gets me is that, once again, don't wait until you retire. Don't wait until you're out of the military before you turn around and start throwing stones at Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth. Oppose them. Meg
Yeah.
Hegseth have to fire you. Because make no mistake about it, when this nightmare is over, you'll be taken care of. We're going to deal with these people. We're going to deal with these people when we take back power. And they know it's coming. And that's why they're doing everything in their power. It wouldn't surprise me if they don't try to stop this election, but we're not going to let them get away with that.
I fully agree with that. I think that we have seen threats, and we'll see if they follow through, and we'll see how Democrats prepared for this to happen. Is ICE and National Guard and various other policing forces that Trump has co-opted. I would not be surprised. I'd be surprised, honestly, if he didn't send them to polling locations in swing states and in places where there's going to be close races. And the question is, are Democrats prepared for when that happens? And I don't know. I don't know.
I'll tell you what. If we have Democrats right now in power that aren't behind the scenes making sure that we're ready for this, then shame on them. Shame on them. Everybody needs to make sure when election day gets here, you go and you have your voice heard. People have died so that you have that right. And that's important. And oh, by the way, this is a different. We've heard this every 2 years for every election. This is the most important election of your lives. This one is. Because if you stay home, we may lose our democracy. And make no mistake about it, you don't want to live in a dictatorship. And that's exactly what this administration wants. They want to stay in power so that they can continue robbing this nation blind. Donald Trump is a criminal and he should be held accountable. And right now, the only reason why he's not is because there's more Republicans than there are Democrats in Washington right now.
Exactly. And I think that you have a situation where so many Republicans, like you said, are fearful of what will happen. They're cowardly. They're afraid of what will happen in primary. And they're afraid that they'll lose a primary. They're afraid they'll get a mean tweet thrown at them because they stood up to him on something. The thing is, I'm happy that oh gosh, I can't remember his name, but the Pennsylvania congressman on the Republican side who's sitting up to Trump on this insurrectionist slush fund, he's trying to get it revoked. That's a good that is what you do.
That's exactly what you do.
He's in a swing district. I still hope the Democrat wins that district, but that's what you do. That's what you do.
You're right. Donald Trump come down to West Virginia and called me a stone cold crazy wacko. And you know what? If fighting for veterans, fighting for union, Donald Trump did. Back in 2018, he come down there and called me a stone cold crazy wacko. But if fighting for unions, if fighting for teachers and school service personnel, if fighting for people like that makes me a stone cold crazy wacko, I'll carry that moniker with pride.
I would put on campaign T-shirts.
We might do that.
Well, in Texas, Talarico has new T-shirts that say "I'm a Talarico," so he's embracing it. As I think that at the end of the day, I was wondering kind of like what the Ojeda what the attacks on the Ojeda campaign are. Like, what are they criticizing you for? Like that, like what are the attacks?
They're trying to say that I'm a closet Republican. Let me tell you this. If I was a Republican, I would have never left West Virginia, and I'd probably be the governor right now. Anybody in West Virginia, all you got to do is scream MAGA, and you get elected.
Yeah.
Believe me, I left West Virginia because I got tired of being around MAGA people. I got tired of busting my butt fighting for people. And literally, we really like Richard Ojeda. He did help us get a pay raise, but we're MAGA. Bye.
Yeah, I think that, yes.
And I want you to know that I didn't come here to North Carolina to get into politics. Had no desire. But once again, when I started seeing the cuts, it made me say, somebody's got to stand up against this guy.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that oftentimes people will assume that people move, especially if you were an elected official once, that you move to a state for political reasons. But I think, as you just said, you left with no political intention. You were leaving with your whole family to just create a new home and leave the craziness that you were dealing with in West Virginia behind, and just live in a better state. That's what you were trying to do.
Yeah, well, when you go from West Virginia to North Carolina, it's like night and day. Like every store you could think of, every type of restaurant, everything, we have it here in North Carolina. I went back to West Virginia, and after a while, we missed that. It's hard to go from having everything at your fingertips to having to drive an hour and a half to get anything really nice. So, we decided we were going to come back here. We brought my whole family. Once again, no desire to get into politics. But you know what? I'm that guy. I'm that guy. When I see something wrong, and I'll tell you this right now, and I said this for years, never walk past something that you know is wrong and fail to make comment. For if you do, you have accepted a new lower standard. And I don't accept lower standards. When I see something wrong, I say it. I call it out. And I don't care what anybody has to say about it.
Well, I think that's exactly that sentiment is exactly why we're seeing a lot more veterans running for office all across the country and becoming the nominees is because there's a certain, like, as you said, like, there's a certain level of, like, you wanna fight for the country that you fought for abroad, you're fighting for those values, and those values are not being upheld by our own leaders.
Yeah, yeah.
And not only are they not being followed, they're being rejected by the elected officials for political power.
Well, we're literally watching somebody who literally wipes his backside with the Constitution.
Yeah.
And that's a fact. That is an absolute fact. They really want this to become a dictatorship. And I didn't spend 24 years in the military, so I didn't spend 24 years in our military so our military could bow down to Donald Trump, a man who was a 5-time draft deferment because he's a coward. And he's now the commander in chief. And now we got these people that are bowing down to him. Show some backbone. Yeah, it bothers me that a former commander of the 82nd Airborne Division is about to be Donald Trump's right-hand man. That bothers me.
I think that's deeply disturbing. I think that one thing I think this is something that Kamala Harris said a year ago now, I guess. She was on, I think, Colbert's show. And this was before he got canceled. And she said, it's like, none of the stuff that Trump's done or tried to do has surprised me. He said he was going to do all of this. I told you he was going to do all this. What surprised me is how many people have
the capitulation.
Whether it's the law firms, the colleges, the military leaders. Congress doesn't surprise me because they've been doing that the last 10 years consistently. But the military leaders, these people that were the ones that we always were told, like, they would uphold the Constitution. And they have not.
That's what I thought. I thought.
Everyone that's fought in the courts have won.
How do you spend your entire adult life in the military teaching soldiers to do the right thing and then bow down to this garbage and lick the boots of these jackaloons? Unacceptable.
Well, the thing is, you have J.D. Vance, like months ago in Hegseth, calling upon all the generals across the country to come heed and listen to them, and then said, we don't want fat generals or people with facial hair. That is so disrespectful. It also, because it was televised, it promoted a weakness to the whole world.
They just sent a memo. They just sent a memo out because they want to get 4,000 troops to go to Donald Trump's little fight that he's having for UFC. And oh, by the way, they're going to have to pay their own way.
I saw that.
But he wants them to wear their dress uniform, and it's going to be anywhere between the mid-90s to over 100 degrees. And he wants them. And what did they say? No fatties. No fatties. I mean, give me a break. Donald Trump, he is literally, that dude sweats butter. There's nothing healthy about this guy.
No, he said he's only 200 pounds in his latest physical.
Yeah, right.
That's what it says. You don't trust the doctors at the White House?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons, too. He's got these doctors that are willing to, let me tell you something. He's not 6'3" and he ain't no 215. He's daggone maybe 6 foot, and he's probably about 400 pounds.
Well, the thing is, what you're seeing is, this is his 3rd annual physical. That's a sentence. And the thing is, what bothers me is, there's no question whether Joe Biden was having health issues. What bothers me is the media never stop talking about Joe Biden, but they don't ever talk about the fact that he has these hand issues, he has these calf issues, he has brain issues, he has weight issues.
This is why the fairness doctrine needs to be brought back. Ronald Reagan killed the fairness doctrine, and that immediately opened the door for the jackaloon, forget his daggone name. He's Rupert Murdoch. That's it. That made him come to America, get his citizenship, and start Fox News. Let me tell you something. We have a significant amount of people in this country that have been drinking from the fountain of Fox, and it has rotted their minds. But the thing about it is that they get away with it because they can. And when they go to court, what do they say? We're not news. We're entertainment. Let me tell you something. We need to bring back the fairness doctrine. And when we catch anybody lying to the people, they get a severe fine and they get taken off the air. That's what needs to happen. And we need to do that. And then we can do that by bringing back the fairness doctrine. How hard is that? We're going to bring it back. We're going to require honesty and integrity in all news media.
And the thing is, opposed to things like ending Citizens United, this requires a simple law. It doesn't require a constitutional amendment like ending Citizens United does. And so I think that it's a simple law. It can be passed by 218 votes in the House and probably just making a change in the filibuster in the Senate, and then 50 votes in the Senate. So I think that you can just do it. So simple law.
But see, that's the thing. It's the thing. It's exactly what you said. And that's what I'm talking about. When you said in the beginning of this interview, you said, will you support the current leadership in the Democratic Party? I want to answer to that. Are we going to end Citizens United on day one? Because if you're not going to get my vote. I want to see citizens. We got to stop allowing these billionaires to buy our elections, because that's exactly what they've done. You know, Elon Musk is under investigation because he's stuck his nose in, and people believe that he's helped steal campaigns all across the world. And once again, he called Donald Trump the winner 4 hours before the election was called. We also knew that Kamala Harris was up in 7 of the 8 battleground states by 10 points the day before the election. And the next day, Trump sweeps everything. I call BS on that. Elon Musk needs to be investigated thoroughly.
I think that Elon Musk is quite an interesting figure, and I think that there's so many things he needs to be investigated for.
Do you know what we can do, though? You know what we can do? Let's talk about doing some good things. Maybe we do a wealth tax. A wealth tax. And I got some numbers written down here. We do a 5% wealth tax over $1 billion. I don't care if you want to be a billionaire, but if you make $1 billion, after that, you're going to get a 5% wealth tax. That would guarantee $450 billion a year. That's $4 trillion over 10 years. Why not start taxing these people? There was a time when we did tax these people, and we built our road system, everything. Yep. We could do so much. You know, I go to Europe all the time, and I ride the rails all over the place, and it's so nice and smooth, and the air conditioners and everything like that. We don't got nothing like that in the United States of America, but we're number one. Yeah, right. And I don't believe. But also, we could also remove the cap on Social Security. And if we remove the cap and we require billionaires and millionaires to pay into every dollar that they make like the rest of us do, we would create a $300 billion per year to be able to strengthen Social Security. Yes. That would make sure that we would have Social Security for our children. Right now, they're talking about Social Security ending within the next 2 to 3 years. This is something that we paid into our entire adult lives. We should be fighting for this stuff. Don't you want your Social Security when the time comes? You paid into it. Yep. But these billionaires want to kill your capabilities while they pay no taxes whatsoever. It's time that we tax the billionaires.
I fully agree with you. I think that seems like a common sense proposal to me. I know that who was it? I think it was Jeff Bezos who went on CNBC a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and he said, if I pay this wealth tax, a waitress in New York City is not going to be any better off. And I like what Elizabeth Warren, I think, said. Well, let's find out. Let's find out. Oh, by the way, how much does Bezos take as a salary? Do you know? I do not know.
He only takes. It's like no. He only takes about an $80,000 salary. You know, but he's got all this stuff, right? Right. He takes out loans to live the way he lives on all that stuff that's tax write-offs for him. That's the way he does it. So the thing is, he's beating the system anyway. It's time to start and make no mistake about it, they'll probably try that. Well, I only make $80,000 a year, so whatever. We need to start taxing the billionaires. We have carried this country on our backs, the working class, since Ronald Reagan said trickle-down economics. And guess what? The billionaires never let nothing trickle down. They just got a bigger plate. And that's all they do. And right now, that's what this is all about. And oh, by the way, that's what the Epstein files are about. It's about the Billionaire Boys Club that went on for decades, where the rich people got to do what they wanted when they wanted. Did you see the email that the guy that worked at Harvard University sent to Jeffrey Epstein that just said, did you punish her?
Yeah.
These are the kind of people that we need to be going after, period, and taking everything from them. When we find out, and I don't go, oh, if the Epstein files if they get allowed, it could crash the economy. Are we literally going to say that billionaires are too big to punish when they have raped and beaten and possibly murdered children? Do they get a pass because of that? Because nobody is above the law.
Agreed. I think that no matter what the Supreme Court says, no one's above the law. And I think that one thing I'm assuming you're, what is the, I know you support increasing the minimum wage, but what is the ideal number for you for raising the minimum wage? Is it 15, 18, whatever? What is that?
Honestly, people should probably have about, if we would have tied minimum wage to the cost of living,
Yeah.
so that if the price of goods go up, minimum wage goes up. That's what I've been talking about. And right now, if we would have done that, minimum wage would be $36 right now. And oh, by the way, for people to scream, oh, if you raise the prices, it's going to cause people to not, it's going to, hurt people, the customers.
Small
Wrong.
businesses.
Wrong.
Yeah.
Because
Small
they do
businesses, yeah.
Small businesses are doing it in California and they're thriving because of it. At the end of the day, everything that we have comes from people that put the work in. And these people deserve far better than what they get. I'm sick and tired of watching people scream about immigrants, but every chance they get, they're at that Mexican restaurant enjoying their day. These people, we need these people. We need immigrants in this country. That is an absolute fact. We are better because of immigration. Most of us come from immigrants. My grandfather was an immigrant from Mexico that swung a daggone axe in a coal mine until he was 77 years old.
Is there the thing? Like, I think that you can have, and this is something that Democrats from all across the spectrum have said since Trump has started his deportation regime, is you can have a secure border and still let people in a humane way and treat the people that are in the country humanely. It's not a hard thing to do.
Yeah, right. And I'm sick and tired of people throwing stones at people just because they were born on the other side of the fence. How could you act like you're all that? And the truth is you wouldn't shake a stick at a snake if it was about to bite you on the backside. That's how lazy you are. But you want to make sure that nobody in another country can make it to the United States of America. Why are you so selfish? Why are you so selfish about that? Why do you think that you deserve everything, but those people don't deserve anything? All they want to do is come to the United States of America because they were told, if you come to America, you can have a better life. Your children don't have to be, you don't have to worry about your children being snatched up by cartels and used as drug mules. I don't begrudge people that want to come to this country, but it bothers me that I worked so hard for my Afghan interpreters to get every one of them out of Afghanistan.
Yes.
And the majority of them are here in America, and they're thriving. They're doing great. They're working every single day.
Yes.
And I got to sit and listen to people throw stones at them?
Yep.
Unacceptable. I don't tolerate that.
So obviously, like you said, you're obviously in a district where you need to win Republicans, Independents, and Democrats, and you are doing the work to do that. Is there anything that you would want to work with Republicans on if you were in Congress?
I mean, at the end of the day, if there's Republicans that believe that we need to focus on child care, maybe reducing the cost of child care to $10 a day, because that's what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wants. And I hope that there's Republicans that think that that was something that's beneficial. If they want to work on something like that, I'm all about it. Guess what? I'm a veteran. I'm going to be put on probably committees that deal with veterans. There's going to be plenty of Republicans that also serve this nation. Surely we can come together and say that we're going to do things to make sure that we help our veterans' VA systems, keep them from closing.
We're
going to do things, and we're going to try to make sure that we've got the capabilities to deal with the invisible wounds, traumatic brain injury, addiction, things like that. That's what I want. And I believe that there's plenty of Republicans that will join me with that.
I fully agree with you on that. I think that my next question is kind of, obviously, are there Democrats in the current caucus that you kind of would compare yourself to, in how you serve as a member of Congress, compared to other members? You mentioned AOC and stuff like that.
No. No. Look. I'm not the same as anybody else. I'm a different person. But what you get from me is you get somebody that's willing to stand up and say something. Let me tell you, I can speak very passionately about the things that I support. I made West Virginia the 29th state to become legal for medical cannabis. And do you know the Democrats even told me, don't you push that, OJ? You're going to make a lot of people mad. Do you think I give a shit about making you mad? Because it don't bother me. If I'm doing what is right, and I gave passionate speeches about how cannabis helps people that aren't
Yeah.
just soldiers. You show me a police officer, a firefighter, or a first responder that's done those jobs for 10 years, and I'll show you somebody has a hard time sleeping at night. But they don't have a VA system like I have. They have to swallow all of that. You show me a person that survived a horrific car crash, a house fire, a battered relationship, and I'll show you people that desperately need something to help them get through with their post-traumatic stress disorder. I gave passionate speeches, and on the last day of the legislative session, I held up 13 dog tags, and I said, cannabis cannot bring them home. But cannabis can help those who hear their screams and see their faces when they go to sleep at night. And I had Republicans stand up and say, because of what you said, I'm voting for your bill. And the very next day, the front page of the Charleston Gazette was a picture of me looking up at the tally board when my bill become law.
I think that so often people will say, oh, it's not popular now. This idea, whatever the idea is not popular now, so you shouldn't push for it. No, the thing is, when you stand up for your convictions and you're passionate about things, even if people disagree with you, they'll still vote for you if they believe that you care about what you are talking about and you actually have a reason to support it behind you. It's the inauthenticness of a lot of politicians on either side of the aisle that lead to us losing elections. Because if you're not authentic, people aren't going to believe that you actually care.
If I have one thing about me that I think should be a guarantee that everybody should know, it's that I care. I care. You know, that's why I say I want poor kids to get the same opportunities as rich kids. You know, we're the richest nation on earth. How can we allow people to die because they can't afford health care? You know, this is the kind of stuff that drives me crazy. Because once again, if you're going to call yourself the greatest nation on earth, prove it.
Yes.
Prove it by your actions. Because the truth is the only thing we're number one in is like the amount of people that we lock up in cages.
Yep.
Yeah, we're number one there. You know, and we sit
Yeah.
and we scream, we beat our chests about our military, and we've got a bunch of buffoons right now that stag-on running our military. And it's unacceptable.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that obviously one of the issues that's being talked about obviously right now a lot between the war in Gaza and now the war in Iran and other conflicts, there's a lot of debate around what America should do with its leverage regarding offensive and defensive weapons. Obviously, there's a distinction between the two. What is your view? Because you served in the military, you know.
We have been successful. We have been successful deterring anything that's out there because we've always had that capability. Let me tell you something. You know what? We have the most capabilities in our military. And I mean, it's not even, second place isn't even close. We do have the most lethal fighting force on the face of the earth. But make no mistake about it. It doesn't mean that we're impenetrable. It doesn't mean that we can't lose troops. When you have the people doing the wrong things, that's what happens. And that's where we're at right now. And let me tell you something. You know, Netanyahu was all about this war. But now they're talking about, well, you might have to put boots on the ground to go physically remove all that uranium. And what did Netanyahu say? Well, we're not going to do that. So who do you think that's going to get left up to? The United States of America. And let me tell you something. Right now, with the drone situation, and Iran is up there when it comes to drones. We're firing $4 million rockets to knock down a $40 drone. And I'm going to tell you right now, you know, we're almost out of Tomahawks.
Yep.
These are things that are, I mean, this is a red flag. Red flag. Look, I just want people that support peace. And look, just because you support peace doesn't mean you can't go nose to nose with somebody that's doing the wrong things. And that's important. That's what we do. That's how we use our military. If something happens, if we are attacked, then you do what you got to do. But right now, we are not the good guys. No. We have allowed Netanyahu to drag us into a war where children have been killed, where over 20,000 schools have been leveled. And once
Yeah,
again, did they stop in Gaza? No, they went straight to Lebanon because this is nothing more than power-hungry people that just want everything.
well, I think that like obviously I think that Trump, like Netanyahu's vague, is able to be very convincing for, and I don't know how he was able to convince Trump when um even Bush said no to a
It's
war in the
Trump.
middle.
It's Trump. All you have to do is stroke his ego, and that's it. Oh, Mr. Trump, you're the most powerful president ever. You're the smartest man to ever occupy the chair. Once you say those two things right there, then you can say, can you give me this? And can you do that? And he'll go, of course I will,
Yeah,
because he's gullible.
yes, and I think he'll do that for anyone. I think that he's done with Putin. He's done with President Xi with denying weapons to Taiwan, and there's other
Yeah, and
things.
oh, by the way, what are we going to do? What are we going to do when China invades Taiwan? Because let me tell you something. Do we have the ability to stand up and say, how dare you? You shouldn't do that? How can we say that when we've done it to Venezuela and now we're in daggone attacking Iran? So if
And
China
and we're looking
decides
at
to go,
Cuba, and we're looking at Cuba.
and look at what they're doing to Cuba. And oh, by the way, when you do a blockade and you shut all the things off like power, you know what goes wrong? Incubators. Children die because of that. We've killed people in Cuba. For what? For what?
Exactly, and I think that like obviously there's an ongoing debate about whether or not we block offensive weapons
If
to
you
Israel.
want if you want to make Cuba a country that will finally join the rest of the world, you want to know the best way to do that? With a handshake, with assistance, with showing their people that there's people out there that care about you.
Yes,
Because make no mistake, that right there is how you win people over. You don't win them over by doing building a wall around them so that they can't even get clean drinking water. That's not the way it does. You make enemies that way.
agreed. I fully agree with you. I think that obviously there's debate in Congress about whether or not we block offensive weapons to Israel for the, and also there's debate about what we do with defensive aid regarding Iron Dome and David Sling and other protection things for the Israeli people. And I think that offensive aid, until the Israeli government changes their way of doing things, I think conditioning offensive aid like we do with any other ally makes sense.
Poisoning crops. Poisoning crops. Do you know what white phosphorus is?
Yes.
White phosphorus. We have Willie Pete grenades, okay? I can sit it on an engine block, pull the pin, and it'll eat through that entire engine block. And I'm going to tell you right now, when you get hit with white phosphorus and it's on you, you can't put it out. Water's not going to put it out. It's going to be the most excruciating pain ever. And I believe it wasn't very long ago, a certain group of people got caught using white phosphorus on civilians. That's not what good guys do.
No. And I think that the current Israeli government and the military leadership that they put in place has been very detrimental to the image that the Israeli people who don't oppose this government and are trying to get them out of government, but there hasn't been an election. So the thing is, like, I think that my view has simply been you block offensive aid like we do with any other ally when they don't meet certain conditions, and you keep defensive aid because the people of Israel should not suffer for the awful decisions by the government, just like the American people shouldn't suffer from the awful, evil government that we have here in America. And I think that that seems like a very common sense approach to
It
it.
is. It is. It is.
Because I think that because it's not just Jews, there's also Arabs, there's Christians, there's it
Let me
protects
tell you.
everyone.
Let me tell you. I've traveled extensively. I've been to 74 countries, and I've lived in the Middle East for a few years. I'm going to tell you, I've met people of the Muslim faith that absolutely they show love. You know, I've been in their homes and ate from their tables. You know, I look at people. You know, there's always going to be a group of people that are to the extreme.
Yes.
You know, you can sit and you can talk about Christianity, and you can find groups out there that claim Christianity that are absolutely some of the worst people on the face of the earth. You know, I'm just telling you, I really wish that we would use action and not words, and I'm talking about in a positive way.
Mhm.
I'm tired of war, and you know what? I've seen it up close and personal. Like I said, I got 13 dog tags over there, people that I served with that were killed in Iraq and Afghanistan. And you know, I, anybody that's seen war doesn't want it. I don't want it for my children. I want us to be a type of country that's willing to meet people in the middle. Now, make no mistake about it. If somebody does something wrong, that's why we have our military. You know, but we should never commit our troops with anything other than honesty and integrity. Because I'm going to tell you right now, when I went into Iraq, I was looking for weapons of mass destruction that wasn't there.
No, they're not there, yeah.
General Colin Powell, who, by the way, has had his name removed from the list of names of important people in Arlington because Pete Hegseth decided to take all the
Wow.
black people off of it. Yeah.
Wow.
But before Colin Powell died, he literally looked into a camera and said, the biggest mistake that I ever made was pushing the weapons of mass destruction because they know they didn't exist. You know, they know they didn't exist. And oh, by the way, there's no reason why we should have ever pulled back when we had Osama bin Laden in the Tora Bora Mountains. I'm going to tell you right now, we could have sent 3 Delta Force operators into those caves. Let me tell you something. I don't care how close those caves get. Those guys have no fear. I'm telling you that right now. I know that for a fact. And they would have went in there and they would have dragged Osama bin Laden out of those caves, and it would have been all over with. But we all of a sudden had to pull back and gave him an escape route so that we could invade Iraq. Iraq. I mean, there's been a lot of mistakes that were made that caused us to literally sit in the combat zone for 20 daggone years. But you know what? I just want leaders that are willing to try to find solutions versus saying, let's just go fight everybody. Because you know what I'd like to do one day? I'd like to travel to Cuba and look at those beautiful cars that those people have. I'd like to go there and eat some Cuban food, you know, and maybe if we had people that were willing to extend a hand versus firing a rocket, then maybe that could be a thing one day where people could go to and enjoy.
I think that what you're saying makes a lot of sense. I think that, I wanted to, shout out that, your, campaign was, saying on the live chat that your campaign managers is one of them is Jewish, one of them is Muslim, and I think that is an amazing thing, and I think that we should see a lot more of that type of working together
Yeah,
that we
yeah.
don't see.
Look, I don't have a problem with nobody. I don't
Exactly.
look, and let me tell you something. I've been to quite a few mosques, and like I said, that's one of the things I love going to churches, cathedrals, mosques, especially overseas. But you know, I went to a mosque. I went to a mosque in Alamance County. And we posted pictures. And let me tell you something. It was wonderful. They were so kind to me. Everybody allowed me to speak to them. It was wonderful. And when I left, they fed me some of the best food. It was so good. I went to a gas station to get a bigger spoon because it was so good so I could eat it. And I posted pictures of us at that mosque. And my opponents, folks, commented and said, why don't you post those everywhere? We'll win by a landslide. And my response to him, I'm more than willing to take every single vote that you people don't want to daggone get because you're too scared to go in their backyard and speak to them. I'll be more than happy to take anyone's vote who is sick and tired of the hatred that we have right now in this country.
Exactly. I think that we're seeing so much hatred grow against Jews, against Muslims, against blacks, against everyone. And it's been fueled by people that just want us again to not look. They want to let us look side to side instead of looking up at these people that are pulling the strings. And I think that that is what's
Yeah.
deeply detrimental
And,
to our
yeah.
society.
And that's one of the reasons why I keep saying that we're going to tax the billionaires. We are going to tax the. I don't want to hear, oh, well, what if they leave the country? We'll freeze their assets. They still got stuff here. They still have their stores here. They got their corporations and stuff here. Look, at the end of the day, we're going to hold them accountable. And like I said, it's not a lot. A 5% tax on wealth over $1 billion. It's $4 trillion in 10 years. You know, we're now $39 trillion in debt, and Donald Trump doesn't care. He's added like $7 trillion to our deficit. Our children are going to be paying for all this garbage. You know, we need leaders in Washington, D.C. that are willing to start standing up for the people and willing to start standing up and taking on the affordability crisis, taking on the problem with affordable housing. You know, we've got to do that.
Yes. I want to end on saying one, if you want to donate and support Richard's campaign for Congress, the link's in the chat, but also it's Ojeda for NC.com. I wish you the best of luck. I think you'll win. I do. And we need you to win.
It's
So
not going to be an easy fight, but make no mistake about it, I am the guy that is ready to fight it.
I
And
can
my
tell.
opponent knows that. He knows that. So,
That's why he's refusing to debate. If
yeah.
he knew he could beat you easily, he would just debate and be done with it. But the fact that he's not debating,
But see, his problem is the things that he's already done, the things that he's already said. You know, when you chose to say no more town halls,
yes,
what you said was that you don't want to listen to the people. A town hall is a job performance review. And if you're not willing to have a job performance review by the people that hired you, then maybe you shouldn't be there.
I fully agree. Well, thank you again for joining. It was a pleasure talking to you, and good luck on your campaign.
I had a great time. Ojeda for NC.com. Come check us out.
Great.
Airborne.
Thank you so much for joining. That was Major Richard Ojeda. He's running for North Carolina's 9th Congressional District against the NRCC Chairman, Richard Hudson. Please support his campaign, and I look forward to seeing you subscribe. I have free and paid subscriptions. They don't differ in content. I don't paywall my content. And the paid subscriptions are $12 a month and $100 a year. Those are simply ways to support independent media, but they're not required. Thank you, and I will have another interview in the coming days, and definitely next week, but I might have another one this week. Great, and have a great day.